All right, what's up? Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. Good morning on Facebook. Good morning on Instagram. I am Dr. Jeff Moore, currently serving as the CEO of ICE, lead faculty for our cervical and lumbar spine divisions. Happy to be with you on a Monday morning, on a Q&A Monday morning. So let's start off. First of all, I want to say thanks to the Vertex crew. With the Better Faster podcast. I was on there last night talking to Brandon and Josh. Had a blast. Hopefully you're going to see that come out, I think, today or tomorrow. But we had a great time chatting. So thanks for the folks from Vertex for having us on. And thanks in advance for the fittest physio competition. Ready to rock and roll. What an awesome idea to get a bunch of physios moving and competing. So that's going to be a blast when that kind of rolls out here in very short order. Hey, what's up? Good to see you on Instagram. Course-wise, we had a ton of online courses that launched today. And so a bunch of those are off and running. And then we have a whole nother fleet of courses that launches next week. So we've got Out of Network Step by Step with Sarah Herron. We've got our Telehealth Build Your Digital Practice with Rob Vining. And then we have two of our fitness athlete courses, Advanced Concepts with Zach Long and Mitch Babcock, as well as Pregnancy and Postpartum with Christina and Kelsey. So we've got a whole bunch of courses that launch this week and then a whole bunch of online courses launching next week. So by all means, jump into one of those. All right, so Q&A Monday. So we had a bunch of great questions. We're still kind of working our way through. One of them that I thought was great, that when we posted it, we got a tremendous amount of, I was wondering that too. So I think that stimulates or suggests a very good question, was which course do you recommend I take first, particularly as a new grad? It's a really good question. Like, where do you start? All these options are there. What's the best spot to start? Now, I appreciate that this question is likely pertaining to the ICE curriculum, but let's broaden that a bit first and talk about, regardless of where you choose your continuing education, what should it look like coming out of school? I think the best way to answer that question is to realize what you don't lack. So we talk a lot on the ICE podcast and in our courses in general on this idea of the Hopper method, right? That is used in CrossFit, talking about not having any weaknesses. I don't think that a clinician can be practicing in their top 10% of their profession and have glaring weaknesses in their game. Because when they have those weaknesses, their bias away from those weaknesses is going to drive or steer the patient's plan of care, which is inappropriate because it's not supposed to be about us, right? So if you do have glaring weaknesses, I think you need to address those and shore those up as early as possible coming out of school. So glaring weaknesses that I don't think often exist in new grads, and obviously exceptions all across the board, but trying to give it to you as I see it on the whole. Weaknesses that I don't tend to think exist are, number one, knowledge of current research. I think that new grads come out really up to date on research. Now, the challenge is staying with it over the years, right? But I think when folks come out of school, if you have a chat with them about where current research is on common topics in physio, they're pretty on top of it. And number two, the area that I don't think oftentimes needs a lot of attention is psychomotor proficiency on basic techniques. The reason those two areas, I think, tend to not be the most glaring deficiencies in new grads is those are the two things that you can practice ad nauseum when you're in your current school program, right? You can study current research and you can practice a ton of techniques. Now, you're doing them on people who aren't in pain, so it's a little bit of a different game, but you can do a tremendous amount of psychomotor practice while you're in school. You can read a ton of research. The research is the same whether you're in school or out of school. You can do those things at high volume and get very proficient while you're in your program. So I don't know if those are areas that you really need to hunt down additional education right out of the gates when you're coming out of school. On the other hand, what are the common deficiencies that we see in folks who are coming out of school, not due to their responsibility or their lack of, simply because these are the things you can't really work on when you're in school? Number one is a trained eye regarding movement, right? Is the ability to analyze movement and look at different options and choices that people make and evaluate them, right? And be able to notice when someone's really guarding, when somebody's really fearful, right? When the movement choice is odd, right? And other options might be more appropriate, right? Be that because one movement is sensitive, right? And create more of a pain-free option, or that one movement might enhance performance. But the ability to look at movement and really take a lot from that. So gaining that trained eye. And then along with that is giving effective cues, right? Particularly external cues that get the movement change that you would like to see. So somebody's having pain pressing overhead. Number one, can you look at the movement, recognize it for what it is, see what option they chose, and then have a library of other options that you can cue to access effectively, right? Punch the ceiling, right? Can you give quick external cues that activate that scapulothoracic complex that might give that person a movement option overhead that's not as sensitive, right? Spread the floor with the legs, right? Can you give people these really quick cues that you notice, like, hey, you know what? That's sort of an interesting choice. Hey, try this. Can I give you another option for that pattern that might be every bit as effective or more effective and decrease your pain and allow you to get the stimulus you're looking for without the sensitivity? I think that world is somewhere that most new grads need a lot of touching up, is observing movement and then giving effective cues to change movement, to give people options to gain stimuli, right, that might be more advantageous than the one they're currently choosing. Considering we're the movement experts, I would say that's somewhere that we should just be absolutely dominant, right? Is being able to look and say, that's an interesting choice. I wonder why they're doing that. Maybe I need to question a bit more of, are they in pain when they're doing that? Are they afraid to do that? Because the way they're going about it doesn't seem really efficient. And I want to inquire a bit more about that. If some of those things do show up, I want to be ready to be able to cue some other options that might be more advantageous. I think that ability in the movement world is an area that I would really encourage a lot of new grads to go after early on. Another huge one is clinical reasoning, because while your partner's doing their best, right, it's really hard for them to fake an actual history in the world of someone who's currently undergoing musculoskeletal dysfunction, right, and having a pain syndrome that's affecting their life. It's hard for your healthy partner in school to pretend to be that person. And as you dive into a history, eventually it kind of falls apart. So I think being able to really reason through complex histories of actual humans and dysfunctions is somewhere that you've got to get to right away. And so the clinical reasoning component is huge because, again, very hard to practice in school when your partner's not actually having the problem and hasn't actually had the history that led to the problem. They're doing their best. It's not what it actually looks like on game time. And I think those abilities to process and reason need to be honed early on out of school. Another big one is working with centrally dominant presentations. Again, just hard to fake that in school. Working with someone whose central nervous system is really ramped up, their processing is really maladaptive, like knowing what that person looks like, how to change your evaluation, how to change your language, how to change your interventions, how to expose and pace these people, that is an entirely different ballgame that, again, is almost impossible to mimic while you're in your university program. So because of that, those four things, like developing a really trained eye for someone's movement library, recognizing when it might be a bit abnormal, when it might lead to more sensitivity, when it might be a little bit inefficient, having that library of movement, having that trained eye, and then being able to cue it. It's one thing to be able to see it, but if you can't cue it effectively, seeing it doesn't have a whole lot of merit. And cueing it ineffectively is a real problem because oftentimes the person's already frustrated. They're already having a hard time with the movement or skill. If you're giving them cues that confuse them, you're not helping. You've got to be able to give really quick, effective cues that somebody in a challenging situation who's trying to learn something new and probably frustrated with what's going on can understand and implement immediately. Punch the ceiling is a great example, right? Anybody can engage that scapulothoracic complex. Okay, punch the ceiling, engage that shoulder. Quick, effective cues to give movement options is a tremendous skill for someone who claims to be a movement professional. That needs to be gone after. The clinical reasoning on actual people who have long histories that have led to limitations in their life because of pain, in working with people whose central nervous system is driving a lot of the ongoing issue due to processing problems, knowing how to evaluate, treat, engage, and plan for that person. I would say those things, regardless of where you choose to get your education, I think those things often need to be gained for that new grad. Quite honestly, I think those things are what a lot of clinicians need to go after. But I think particularly because they're so hard to practice without an actual patient data set or humans that you're working with, they really need to be focused on coming early out of school. So find courses, think about those areas, And think about the one where you're like, oh, that one in particular, I feel totally out of bounds on. Like I don't have any level of comfort there. If that patient came in, I'm not sure how effective I would be. Go after that class. Whatever one of those really resonated with you as being a massive gap, go after that one. Now, that being said, going 30,000 foot view, I appreciate the question is regarding the ICE curriculum. The first thing that I would say is all of what I just set aside, if there's one area that you are super passionate, like you know who you want to treat and you know a part of your business you want to grow, go get it. Like we have enough, and I think most companies would be able to say this, I hope. We have enough similarities across our courses that if you go after one specialty niche, you're still going to get a lot of the fundamental reasoning in those different components that are in some of our more foundational courses. So if you know you want to treat performing artists, you want to treat triathletes, so you want to do the runner course in the professional bike bit, go get that content. If you're that passionate about it and you want to go engage with those folks ASAP, go get it. If it's a business topic, you know you want to open a telehealth arm of your practice, you know you want to open an out-of-network clinic, go ahead and knock those out, right? And get in that space as soon as possible. That being said, if there's not a pressing issue, I really would focus on the core curriculum, right? Which is 3 live courses and 3 online courses, right? Which depending on which medium you want to engage with, gets you down to one of 3. So that's going to be our spine series, lumbar and cervical. The big part is that clinical reasoning component. That's where we lay all that out, the process, if you will. And that goes back to the fact that in school, it's really hard to get good at the process because the people that you're seeing, if you will, are faking their problem. So it's really hard to actually take a history that gets convoluted, that has new variables coming at you late in the game that are real, and the emotional component. The person's actually struggling, right? And they need you to be efficient and effective as you're going through dialogue on a history that has caused them pain. So that ability to have a process that allows you to go through that in a really effective way and not stumble and be effective is absolutely critical. Our total spine thrust course, I believe, because a lot of places don't teach that well in school, right? Either the faculty don't have a great grasp of it, there's unnecessary fear that's built into that part of the curriculum. So that's the one psychomotor skill I don't think you practice very well in school is often thrust manipulation. So of the actual skill things that you can go out and grab, I think that's the one that we're oftentimes missing, right? And then getting into the centrally dominant patient with our persistent pain course and then our movement curriculum, the CMFA curriculum, Essential Foundations, and the older adult class, because it shows the things that people are doing in CMFA can be done by older adults. So I think focusing on those 6 core courses, 3 of which are online and 3 of which are live, those are going to tackle best the gaps that we see in the new grad and quite honestly, that we see in the majority of clinicians, which is why that is our core curriculum. But the biggest thing is to think about what haven't you done a lot of and where are your gaps? When a patient comes in, what are you hoping you don't have to do? Whatever the answer to that question is, go and get the information necessary so you no longer have that fear. Because if you're sitting there saying, gosh, I really hope this person doesn't come in and say, you know, if someone would just quickly crack my neck, I feel like it would feel a lot better and I could start doing some of the overhead activities that I love. I don't want to hear that because I'm so uncomfortable with that technique. I really hope that person doesn't come in with chronic pain because I have such a hard time understanding why that person hurts everywhere. And nothing I ever do for those folks seems to work. If that person comes in and you're hoping they don't say, it's really my power clean or my overhead press or my push jerk that causes that elbow pain, because I have no idea what that should look like. If you have glaring gaps, plug them. Get the curriculum that you need to fill those gaps. So when that patient comes in, you stand ready. You stand ready. You're calm, right? Come at me, right? Whatever you got, I'm ready for. I love it all. I can't wait to try and work you through that convoluted, challenging emotional history if you have persistent pain. I can't wait to videotape your power clean, right? I can't wait to program your running for that next 50K. I can't wait because I love it all. When you get there, your job is going to be so much more enjoyable because the anxiety of the gaps in your game that you know are biasing your patient care are causing a lot of your distress. When you stand there confident across all the fundamental platforms of the majority of patients who come in and see you, you now stand ready and excited at the eval door for every and any patient. Find a way to use our curriculum, find a way to use other people's curriculums, and get to that space as soon as possible. The quicker you do, the more you'll love what you do. I hope that answers the question. It was a great one. And again, I think it's a matter of finding those deficiencies. So hit me up with follow-ups. Love the Q&As. We've got a whole bunch of them we'll be doing over the next few weeks. Really good questions coming in, so thank you for that. Vertex, Fitness Physio, I'm ready for the announcement. Can't wait to jump in. I'm going to get destroyed in the competition. I'm totally game with that. My hat's in the ring. Thanks, everybody. Have a killer Monday. Get out of here. Go enjoy.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.